Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Sumac virtual training webinar. Thank you so much for signing on today. My name is Rohan, and I'm an implementation specialist here at Silent Partner. I'll be your moderator for today's session. Today, we will be covering how to carry out mailing and solicitations in Sumac and how to configure options in the database needed to carry out those efforts. Before we get into the training, I want to take care of a few little housekeeping updates. For today's session, we have muted all participants' microphones. We have a lot of content that we want to show you, and we don't want to keep you over time, so we won't be answering questions live in the training. However, we still really encourage you to reach out through the Q&A function. You'll see a Q&A icon along the bottom of your screen. If any questions come in during the session, I'll try to answer them, or I'll take your name and your question, and our team will reach out after the session to help you one-on-one. We are recording today's session, and a recording will be made available to all Sumac clients through our online support portal. If you want to share today's session with any of your colleagues who couldn't attend, or you just want to rewatch the session yourself in coming weeks, you'll be able to access the recording anytime. Now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Corey, who will be guiding us through today's session. Take it away, Corey.
Thanks, Rohan, and hello, everyone. My name is Corey, and I'll be your Sumac tour guide today. I just want to say from the beginning, thank you all for joining the session, and it's great to see that so many people joined in. As many of you signing in today likely already know, Sumac is a CRM. It handles contact relationship management for your nonprofit. It stores all of your contacts, your donors, clients, staff, families, or other organizations, really anyone. It also stores all of the interactions you've had with those contacts all in one place. And this makes it a very useful tool for when it's time to reach out to your constituents for fundraising, engagement, newsletter mailings, and more. Before we get into print mail and mail merging, I want to visit the contacts area and discuss some of the key fields in the contact record that will be helpful in any type of mailing in Sumac. So here, if I open up the contacts area, and then if I choose a contact, I'll search for myself and double click to open the contact record. See, there's a few key fields that I think everyone should be aware of when they're sending mailings, and that's letter salutation, the contact statuses up here, and the communication preferences down here. Letter salutation is what Sumac uses in the Dear part of a letter. This lets you personalize your mailings so much better, and personalized communications to your constituents can really improve the effectiveness of your mailings, especially for fundraising letters. Sumac will set a default salutation for you based on the contact's first and last name, but you can manually type something else like we have here. And then when you do the mail merge, Sumac will pull what's in the salutation field. Contact statuses and communication preferences are really helpful when you're trying to produce your mailing list. You can use these labels to filter your list just to make sure you're mailing to the people you actually intend to mail to. So when you send out your newsletter, you're going to be focusing on the people who actually want to receive it. Maybe you're sending your newsletter, or you're sending invitations to an event or a virtual event. You find the people who want that mailing first, then you can remove people who are marked as deceased, inactive, or removed. And that principle is true for any type of mailing. First, you will find the people who want and should receive that mailing, and then you remove the people who shouldn't get it. And we've actually added some new automatic filters that I'll point out later. Contact types, which is also a checkbox group down here, are another quick and simple way to categorize the people in your database. And that's the whole goal with the contact types, to categorize your contacts so you can quickly find them later on. For any Sumac administrators who are in the session today, contact types is a lookup list, so they're completely customizable. You can personalize your contact types to suit the needs of your categories that you'll want to use for grouping your contacts together. So now that we've looked at some of the common and important fields in the contact record, I'll close out of here. And I want to talk about print mail and mail merging. The most important parts of sending out a mailing are who should receive it, and of course, what you're going to be sending to them. So we'll need to have created our letter, whether it's a solicitation or a newsletter or a thank you, before we can send it. So let's start there. And this may be a refresher for a lot of the attendees here, but just to go over it for everyone who it's not, mail merge. A mail merge is a method of taking data from your database and inserting that data into documents like a Microsoft Word document, an email, or a PDF. In Sumac, we call these documents templates, and you can design your template to have whatever letter content you would like a thank you letter or a tax receipt, so that all the text you want to have, maybe perhaps your logo, your letterhead at the top, and then you can run that mail merge through Sumac to insert data from the database into the resulting letters. This lets you personalize the letters you're creating in Sumac, which, as we talked about earlier, is a really effective way to engage your recipients. So in Sumac, if we're running a print mail, we'll be able to use a docx or an RTF file as our template. And this is great because we can use something like Microsoft Word to make the templates, which makes the print mailing really simple. To make sure you personalize that letter, we can use this mail merge codes area to find the mail merge codes we need and then insert them into the corresponding fields in Sumac. Sorry, into your letter. So here I went to the mail merge codes area and I've opened it up, and this is where we can find the codes we may need and even test them before inserting them into our template. So let's use a donation solicitation as an example template that we intend to create. So I'll choose donation here in record type, because now the drop down to the right of it will have all the fields I may want from a donation record that I want to merge into my letter. If I choose a field from here, and let's say it's the donor salutation, it gives me the corresponding mail merge code for that field. Normally, I would just copy and paste these into the template and begin writing my letter, but I've actually completed that step already, just in the interest of the mail merge. So I will have to just quickly open that template, have it saved on my desktop. So I wanted to show everyone what a mail merge template looks like once it's built. So this is an example of a solicitation letter. And you can see that I have my organization name, the contact's mail address, the organization mail address, today's date, the recipient's mail address, and then that letter's citation, and then the body of my solicitation letter. And I've also added a signature here at the bottom, and we got the organization name here at the bottom again. So I just wanted everyone to see what it may look like when we have a nearly completed mail merge template. And of course, you can tweak this and suit the needs of your organization. So I'll just minimize that for now, and we'll close out of the mail merge codes area. And just before we actually go and perform that mail merge, I just want to mention that when it comes to sending emails, it's nearly the same process. When Sumac sends bulk email, it is essentially running a mail merge to personalize the emails as it sends them out. Because it's an email and not a print mailing, we would need to use an HTML file as our template rather than docx or RTF that we just saw. And you would use an HTML editor to make those templates. There are a lot of free HTML editors out there. I use SeaMonkey because it's free, so I don't have to buy anything extra, and because it's very basic. So if you're looking to make a really fancy newsletter with several pages and lots of design elements to it, SeaMonkey is too simple for that. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that you may need. that's what you're looking to do, I find that Adobe tools probably be a better experience to design those templates. But if you're looking to make a super simple thank you letter that just says, hi Rohan, thank you for your donation, the SeaMonkey is really good for something like that. Whatever HTML editor you use, the principle is the same as what we just went through. You would be designing your template in your editor, but we can get the mail merge codes from the mail merge codes area and put them into that template. And then when we send the email, Sumac takes care of the rest. And another quick tip that I just want to mention is that on the topic of HTML editors to use, technically Microsoft Word can save HTML files, but if you try to use Word to make an HTML template, it will not work when sending the email out of Sumac. Word has a tendency to insert a variety of codes into the template that are incorrectly interpreted by email programs that your recipients will be trying to use, and then they won't be able, that your recipients will be using, and they will not be able to read the email. We've run into some tricky support cases where the HTML template was made in Word and that was the reason it didn't display properly. So be sure to use an HTML editor like Adobe or SeaMonkey that's compatible. I'll open SeaMonkey later and we'll look at some example templates. So I know it's a bit of a detour from mail merge and the solicitation letter we just saw, but I just wanted to mention that on the general topic of creating templates. So kind of circling back to the solicitation, we just saw the template. We saw how we can get the codes and insert them into our mail merge template. So now I want to focus on how we are going to find the contacts we intend to send our solicitation letter to. And for that, I'm going to use Search Builder. Search Builder is here at the top of the contacts area. And right away when I open it, I'm asked, do you want to open an existing search criteria or create a new one? So I'm going to say new. And we're going to create a search builder with a few different criteria. And I'll just let everyone know the criteria I intend to use first, and then we'll put it together. So I'm going to look for any contacts who have donated in the last 2 years. And then I'm going to exclude anyone that doesn't have an address, doesn't have a phone number, and if they've donated in the last 2 months, because we don't want to reach out to someone who just donated. So I'm going to go ahead and create each one of those criteria here in the search builder and point out a few tips as I do so. When creating a criteria, we can add a title or a note, and these can be helpful for helping identify the criteria. So we'll just call this contacts who donated in the last 2 years. And note that these are optional. All you need to do is choose the criteria. So when I expand this dropdown, there's a large list of criteria that I can choose from. And I want donations made in a date range. And it's really simple. I'll just do a calendar year to make it easy. So we'll do 2019-01-01 to today's date. So nearly 2 years. Can't believe it's already October 1st. And I'm going to click OK. And here you can see Sumac created that criteria. And there's our title at the top. And that's one of the criteria we wanted to create. So now let's find the criteria that will exclude donors who do not have an address. So I'm going to click New Criterion once again. I'm going to put in the title again. And here I have a criteria, and it actually finds contacts with no postal address. But what I can do is use this reverse the search checkbox. So when I select this, it actually finds the opposite and finds contacts who have a residence or business postal address. So that's how I can make sure I'm only sending a letter out to contacts that actually have an address. So that's another criteria. I'm going to click new criterion again and do something similar because I don't want to reach out to anyone who doesn't have a phone number as well. So contacts without a phone number is the title here. Criterion type. And you know what? Instead of phone number, I'm going to go with email for now, just to make it a bit easier in our webinar. So contacts without an email. Even though this is a print mail, I still don't want to reach out to these people. But because this criteria finds contacts with no email, I'm going to click reverse the search again. So we're finding contacts who have an email. And lastly, I want to omit anyone that donated in the last 2 months. So I'm going to click new criterion, exclude recent donors is the title here. I'm going to choose my donation made a donation in a date range again. We'll go back to August 1st. And today. So again, I'm going to reverse it. So I'm excluding anyone who has a donation that fell within this date range. So this gave us 4 different criteria. And the last step here is to connect them all with a connector, because right now they are not related to each other. And I am looking for contacts that meet all of these criteria at one time. So by holding the control key on my keyboard and clicking on each criteria, you can see that it's highlighted, indicated by these red squares all around the edge. So now that I have all my criteria highlighted, I can click new connector. I'm not going to worry about the title or notes for my connector. And you'll see I have a few options. I can say meets all 4, meets 1 or more, or meets just exactly 1. But in our case, we want to find the contacts who meet all 4 criteria. So I'll click OK. That creates my connector. And you can see Sumac gives me a visual indicator with these arrows that show how my criteria all funnel into this single connector. And that's always the goal when we're working in Search Builder, is to have everything eventually narrow down into one connector. So now that I've completed my search criteria, I can click search. And here Sumac shows me that there are 59 contacts that meet all this criteria at once in my database, which is great. I'm able to save this criteria or save it as a group, but for now, I'm just going to click show 59 contacts. And now this list in Sumac is the 59 that my search criteria just returned. And I can confirm that by looking at the bottom left, entries in list. So now that Sumac shows me the list of donors that I want to send my solicitation to, we can actually perform our mail merge. So I'm going to go to the left-hand side here and click mail merge. And for today's session, I'm not going to mail merge all 59, although it's as easy as pressing Control A, highlighting everyone. But I'm just going to choose 3 just so it doesn't take as long for our example. So I've highlighted these 3 contacts. I'm clicking mail merge. And I have a few options. So I could choose the whole list. So I actually don't even need to highlight. I can just say I want the entire list. But for now, I'm going to say selected, which is just those that are highlighted. I can run the last mail merge I did. I was doing a test run, but I'll say run a different mail merge. We have some other options. But then down here, underneath choose template, I can click choose. And I can choose from templates uploaded in the database or those that are on my computer. I'm going to click choose a file to choose the template we just looked at on my computer. It's in my webinar template folder, and it's the solicitation sample. So I've chosen my template. And before I click OK to perform the mail merge, I just wanted to point out, we mentioned those status checkboxes earlier when we looked at the contact record. And down below, Sumac will automatically filter out anyone marked deceased, inactive, or moved. And I can also select to exclude anyone that is marked as do not solicit. And I just want to mention that I'll point out later on in the webinar how we specify which communication preference means do not solicit or do not mail. So we've chosen selected, we've chosen our template, and we're filtering out those contacts. So I'm going to click OK. Now I choose where I want my output files to be saved on my computer. So I'm just going to go ahead and save it to my desktop, and you see Sumac gives it a default name, and I'll just click save. And I'm going to ask Sumac to open the file when we're done and click OK. So you'll notice that after every mail merge, Sumac prompts me to save a communication record. I'll say yes here. A communication record allows you to track any interaction with the contacts in your database, whether it was an email, a phone call, in-person meeting, a thank you letter, solicitation like we are right now, like we're creating right now, so that in the future, you can get an accurate representation of your communications with your contacts. So here I'm crafting the communication that will be applied to everyone I just performed the mail merge for. I'll choose solicitation as the type. Oh, I thought I had it in here. My apologies. I don't have, I'll choose funder newsletter, but just like all drop downs and checkboxes in the database, communication types are customizable. So we're able to add new options there, and we'll cover going into the lookup list and creating new options later on. So normally I would choose solicitation here. I do apologize, but for now, I'll just choose funder newsletter. And this was a solicitation. Just put a quick note. It already has today's date. And when I click OK, it creates that communication for everyone we just did the mail merge for. And since I chose Sumac to open my document when I was done, it opened automatically. And we can see that what our merged solicitation looks like. And it's put in my organization information and the contact information as well. And it's also greeted them appropriately. And since there was 3 included here, 3 contacts, we have 3 pages with 3 separate documents. By putting them all in one document, it makes it really easy just to print it off and get ready to send out. So we might have, you can imagine, we might have printed our letters. So I'll close that for now. So we might have printed our letters, and I'll close out of the search builder as well. And now you'll likely want to print labels or envelopes to put those letters in and send them out. And Sumac can help us with that as well. So we still have our list of donors showing, and I still have these contacts highlighted. So it's as easy as clicking labels and envelopes here on the left-hand side. It's a bit of a different prompt. So I'm going to say selected once again, because I'm only interested in the selected contacts. Then it opens up this window where I can choose my page format, depending on the type of label or envelope I'm using. There's a few other options here. Again, we have our automatic filter settings down here. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. Then I have a few options for what I want to do with those labels or envelopes. I can go directly to the printer, a file, or choose screen. Since I'm not actually going to print them today, I'm going to choose screen and click report. And this gives me a preview of what the labels will look like. So I have an idea of how many there are, what the formatting will look like if it suits my needs. And when I'm done, I just click print, send it to my printer, and I've just very quickly created my letters and labels or envelopes in just a few clicks. So we're not actually going to print them in today's webinar. I'll close out of here. And the great thing about mail merging, just to kind of circle back, is that you only need to create that template once. And the benefit of that is that you have all this data in Sumac, so you create that template once, and then you can repeatedly use it for those similar types of mailings. And as you get more information in Sumac, you can still use the same template to continue to generate letters. And of course, you always have the option to update those letters if you ever need to do any changes. So again, when making label or envelope, Sumac asks if I want to save a communication record. In this case, I'm going to say no. It'd be a bit redundant, but that's also an option if you're just making labels and haven't done a mailing prior. So we just covered, how to do a lot of things related to print mail, but now I want to chat about email. And I briefly touched on SeaMonkey earlier, but before we can create a template or actually send out an email, we have to configure Sumac with our outgoing email information. So Sumac supports sending outgoing email, and to configure that information in the database, I'll close out of contacts. I'm not going to save my search builder. And I need to go to utilities, customize database, and then offices. And please keep in mind that you do need to be an administrator to access this information. So here I am in the office area, and the office record holds information about your organization, name, address, charitable registration number, and it's also where you configure email in the database. So if I just double click on my main record here, you'll see all those options. And for configuring email down here, we have 3 different options. We have SMTP, Gmail, or Office 365. So if your organization uses Gmail or Office 365, we have direct integrations with those platforms. And if your organization uses an email address that's not one of those 2, you will need to obtain your SMTP server credentials, usually from your IT person or email service provider. Since I use Gmail, I wanted to show you how easy it is to connect your Gmail account. So since I use Gmail, I've selected Gmail down here, and all I need to do is click Login Google. And that opens up my web browser, and I'll just drag that into the frame. It opened up on my other monitor. So it opened up my browser, and here's my work and personal email account, and I'll just click on my work email. I'll need to allow a few settings here. And now it's received the verification code, and I can close this window. And here we can see that my Google account is now inserted into the field. I've just set my outgoing email name as Sumac, and when I click OK, now I've configured Sumac to send outgoing email using my Gmail address. You'll see that we have multiple office records here, and they have different visible names. So if you have several different email addresses that you may want to send from, you can set up a different office record for each one of them so that Sumac will know how and when to send emails from those accounts. And that visible name field here allows you to easily identify which office you want to select when sending that outgoing email. And I'll point that out when we walk through sending an email shortly. So something else to be aware of when configuring and sending email from Sumac is the sending limitations in place for anti-spam regulations. All email services, all of them, no matter which one you use, will have a limit on the number of emails that can be sent within a certain time frame. Doesn't matter if using Gmail, Outlook, or an internal SMTP server, they will all have limits. And there's no universal standard that all of them share. It's very important that you identify the limits of your particular email server and address to make sure that you're not sending too many emails at once and breaking those limits. I did a brief bit of research when prepping for this webinar, and I can let you know that today, for a standard Gmail account, you cannot send more than 500 emails a day. And for a standard Office 365 account, you cannot include more than 500 recipients in a single email, but the limit is 10,000 emails a day. Although These restrictions often change, so please confirm your limits for your email address before you go ahead and then send it. And Sumac has batching and scheduling features built into the email capabilities, so we do help you avoid hitting those limits by setting batches and things of that nature, but just something you want to keep in mind. So now that we've got Sumac set up to send out emails, let's talk about templates again when it comes to sending out email. So earlier I mentioned HTML templates and that we can create HTML templates that have mail merge codes in them and send personalized emails to the contacts in our database. It's really just like a print mailing. We've already taken a look at how to find the mail merge codes we may need. So instead of covering that again, I'm going to move directly into creating an HTML template for a newsletter. I mentioned SeaMonkey earlier, and that is great to work with because it's easy, it's free, and lets you focus on creating your template, and it automatically puts it into the HTML format that works with Sumac. I've downloaded a pre-built template from sumac.com, sumac.com/templates. We have a few newsletter templates, and we also have templates for print mail as well. Thank you letters, tax receipts, they're really popular. I definitely suggest downloading them and working from there. But you can always start from scratch as well. And they're just great because you don't have to worry about the design. You can just download it from our website, personalize the newsletter or the template so it suits your organization and you're ready to send. So I'm going to go here and show you. I've already gone into SeaMonkey. I'm in the SeaMonkey Composer, which is where you can actually create your documents. I clicked open and this is a newsletter template from sumac.com, and you can see it's generic, your logo here, headline, but the idea is that you can download this and personalize it. And because we're short on time for the webinar, and rather than customizing or personalizing one together, I have an example of a recent silent partner newsletter, and you see it's not too far off, and this is actually what we send to everyone on our mail list. We send that newsletter out once every 2 weeks, and if you're not already subscribed, let us know. There's tons of great information for nonprofits, and Rohan will share the link to subscribe in the chat with everybody in just a bit. So yeah, this is an example of what a newsletter can look like by inserting images and personalizing it. So now that we've got email configured and we have a template to work with, we can go back to Sumac and actually send out our newsletter. So I'll just minimize SeaMonkey there, close out of the offices area. We'll go back to contacts. And for sending the newsletter, I can search using so we used Search Builder earlier, but I can also just use the search type bar here as well for maybe not as involved searching operations. So we're sending out our newsletter. So I'm going to choose the search criteria communication preference and choose newsletter so I can find all the contacts that have the communication preference newsletter and want to receive it. So I've chosen the criteria and I click search. Sumac finds the 744 contacts that want to receive our newsletter. I want to send a newsletter to myself, and I don't think I didn't mark myself as wanting the newsletter, so I'm just going to go back and do that quickly with everyone. There's my contact record. We'll mark me as newsletter. We'll do that search once again, just to really hammer that home. Do the search. And again, similar to the mail merge, I don't want to send the email to 700 plus contacts or to such a large number. So within this list, I'm just going to find myself. But again, we could send it to the whole list or one person. It's the same process. And to begin the sending, I just go to email here on the left and click send email. Again, just kind of the same thing I just mentioned. We can send to the whole list or just the selected contacts. I'm going to choose selected. So I click selected here. And this window is where we configure our outgoing email. So we had mentioned those visible names for the offices earlier. Well, here is where we choose which office we want to send from. And we can see that with this office selected, there's my Gmail account. In the subject line here, I can put the October newsletter, newsletter, or silent partner rather, sorry. I can BCC if I want. I can do a quick compose, but in this case, I'll click template and click choose and choose my newsletter template here. I'm down here is the batch and scheduling options that I mentioned. I can click test here and Sumac will open my template in a browser and demonstrate give me a bit of a preview. And again, we have the automatically filter out contact section here. So automatically will filter out the ceased, inactive, and moved. And I'll also choose do not solicit because of course you don't want to reach those people. So now when I click send, like we've seen a few times, Sumac prompts me to save a communication record. So I'll do so. There's newsletter. We have the option I was looking for this time. And I'll just say October newsletter. So now, whether it's one person or 700 plus, each one of them will get this communication record. And I can always see in their history that they received this communication, when it happened, the type, and review the notes as well. So I'll say yes. And this window is the status report. You're always going to need to save a status report in Sumac when sending an email. It's a text document that logs details about the email we're sending. And it's always good practice to review that status report after sending out the email, just to confirm that everything was successful. You may see lines that say no email address if a contact didn't have an email, or there might be some sort of email error there. It's just it's good to review it just to make sure everything went out well. And that's it. When I click save here, now Sumac begins sending out the email. We get this little preview down here, and it's done. And that's it. We were able to create a template. We'll configure the database to send email, create a template, and then actually send out that newsletter. So that's really handy and not much different than creating print mail with mail merge. On the topic of email, there's one other useful mailing feature that I want to mention in Sumac, and it's our integrations with Mailchimp and Constant Contact. They're both really popular services with a lot. They're really popular with a lot of our clients because they're really true email marketing systems. Sumac is a CRM with email features, which is great, but it doesn't have all the fully built out email marketing capabilities of something like Mailchimp or Constant Contact. Excuse me. And that's why we integrate with them. So it's easier for you to send your contacts in Sumac over to your email marketing system. If you are using Mailchimp or Constant Contact and you haven't already got this integration set up, it's not too tricky, but this is something that you do need to be a Sumac administrator for. So let's take a quick look at how to do that. I'll close out of contacts. Once again, it's in utilities underneath customized database. I'm going to choose lookup list. Oh, I'll have to enter my password here. Sumac has now opened the lookup list. And I'm going to choose contacts here. And then in this list, I choose email services. And you can see that I've already got a couple of these set up in my demo database. But if I click new, this is what it looks like when you're setting things up fresh. So I can choose the type of email service, let's say Mailchimp. And then I need to fill in the rest of these details. You can give it whatever name you want to use for these things, but I recommend setting up a new email service record for each different list you've got in your email service. So in Mailchimp, if you have 3 or 4 different audience groups, Set up each of those audiences in Sumac. The destination field is where you specify the audience name as it appears in Mailchimp. And then you give Sumac your username and password to finish it up. Once you're done, Sumac will know how to connect to your Mailchimp or Constant Contact account to send contact names and email addresses over there for you. When you want to use it, it's a lot like when you're running a mail merge or a bulk email. And I'll just go back to contacts to point this out. You would search for the people you want to send over to Mailchimp. And once you've got your list, you'd click on this Export to Email Service button. And then you get a list of the email service lists that you've created. And all you have to do is choose the appropriate list and click OK. And it will now send that Sumac data over to Mailchimp or Constant Contact. Once you click OK, Sumac takes care of the rest. So ideally, it's a one-time setup, and then you can continue to use it. So now that we've covered creating templates, performing mail merges, sending out email, and more, I'd like to show you some more configuration settings like that will help with mailings. Again, you will need to be an administrator for a lot of these settings. And the first one I want to show you is something I mentioned earlier in the webinar, how to designate which communication preference means do not mail. So once again, we're going to go to Utilities, Customize Database, but this time we're going to Preferences. And this time we're going to go to the Communications tab. So there's a few different options here. And the one I was mentioning was communication type, which means do not mail. So if we go here and select do not solicit, that's how it appears in the automatic filter out options when we do our mail merge or sending out emails. So that makes it really easy to automatically omit them and ensure you're not emailing people who indicated they don't want to receive emails. Another field here that's important is, or rather neat, is that Sumac can help you report on the mailings you sent. So if I back out of here just for a moment, go back to the lookup list, and I choose communications this time, here are my existing communication preferences, or types rather, sorry. And if I double click on one, I can mark it as this is an ask or this is not an ask. And by configuring this, direct mail, this is an ask. So for each type, we can designate what type of communication it is. And this comes in handy because Sumac has a report called the ask ratio that helps you analyze the communications that you've sent out to your donors, because sending out too many asks may cause donor fatigue, making future solicitations less effective. And since many of you are about to embark on your biggest fundraising initiatives that you've had all year, I thought it'd be good to talk about it a little bit. So if we designate our communication types appropriately here as asks or not an ask, we can then use the ask ratio report. So I'll point out that report. It's found in the donations area. And then underneath Analyze and Report, I can go into my dashboard. Dashboard has a few different reporting options, but I'll expand ask ratio. And sure, we'll report on the last 3 years. We'll just take the default time period here. And if I click show, I get that report. So I apologize, my logo isn't appearing here properly anymore. But otherwise, it shows me number of asks, number of non-ask communications, compares them for each time period I selected, rather years or quarters. I chose 3 years for this one. And then gives me a ratio. And this can help you know if you're asking too much or not enough. So I thought that's a really handy one when it comes to solicitations and doing appeals, and wanted to show that to everyone today. And I think that covers just about everything that I wanted to show you in today's session. And we're just coming up on the time that we had slotted for the webinar today, so that works out great. I want to say thank you to everyone for your time and engagement as we went through the session today. I know we covered a lot of ground, and we may have not gotten as deep into every area, but that as you may have hoped, but I really do hope that everyone who attended is walking away with something new from today's session, having that will make your life easier when using Sumac. And for anyone who sent in questions in advance of today's session, if you didn't get your question answered in today's session, don't worry. Our team will reach out to help address those questions one-on-one afterwards. So again, with all that being said, thank you. And I'm going to turn things back over to Rohan to take care of a few final housekeeping things.
Thanks, Corey. That was great. And thank you so much to everyone who attended. We will continue to present a series of webinars throughout the rest of 2021. If you search for webinar in the Self-Help portal, you can find a list of upcoming webinars with registration links and recordings of past webinars. So check out the support portal anytime to rewatch a previous session or see what will be coming up next. Thank you again for your time today. Whether you joined us for your lunch break, your morning coffee, or took time out of your schedule today, we're so glad you joined us. And thank you so much for choosing Sumac. Happy Friday, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend.